only 3 hands they want to bring in, and they were hitting.
Alex, make sure.
So that's the
Immediately.
the coin.
We sit down at the 5-10, basically 25 game with $3,000 in our stack, and we're going to VPip this first hand, 4 deuce of hearts from the hijack. I raise it up to 30. For all you new players out there, what is a VPip? Well, it's voluntarily put money in the pot. And basically, if you get invited to these live stream games, you have to have a pretty decent VPip. If it's too low, you're a nit and you won't get invited back. So I VPip here, raise it up, and Seinfeld puts in the call from the big blind. We flop ourselves a backdoor heart draw on a queen 7-6 board. It's rainbow, and yeah, no flush draws available at the moment. When Seinfeld checks it over to me, could be betting, could be checking. I take the more passive route, and we turn ourselves a pair of queens with a 4 kicker. So yeah, not the best board. Seinfeld checks it over to me for a second time, and let's try to steal it away here with a very small bet of $15. He continues, he has a gutter to the straight, and the river does not complete it for him, but it's the ace of diamonds. A very good card for me to continue betting on, so when he checks it over to me for a third time, I go for a bet. Seinfeld folds, and that's how you win a pot with 4 deuce of hearts. Let's go.
All right, folks, $25 bomb pot, 4 cards, double boards, hand 23, $2,000 cap.
Occasionally there'll be some double board PLO bomb pots, and that's exactly what we get ourselves into in this one. You can see here I have king, queen, 6, 3. So I end up turning myself the nut straight on the bottom and have a pair of kings on the top. After some betting and calling on the turn, we arrive at the river, which checks through, giving me the $600 pot. It always feels pretty good to scoop up double board PLO bomb pot. Pretty hard to do. Equally as hard to do is getting pocket pairs in No Limit Hold'em. John raises it up to $30, and I decide to 3-bet him with pocket 10s from the +2 position. Benji comes in for a 4-bet, and it's a small sizing of $250. For the enjoyment of you guys, we're going to keep John and Benji's cards hidden from the moment. John actually folds here, so he has king, jack off. The action's back over to me. Facing a 4-bet, we don't love this spot, but pocket 10s are a little bit too good to fold. So I put in the call, and we are going heads up out of position to a flop, which gives me an overpair, 9-6 deuce with 2 diamonds. Probably should just start with a check in this spot, and that's what I do. Actions over to Benji. We still don't know what he has. He could, of course, have me smoked with aces or kings, but at the same time, he's going to have a lot of hands like king-queen suited, jack-queen suited, ace-king suited. So when he goes for a c-bet here of $250, I really can't think about this too long. I have to put in the call with my overpair, and a beautiful card comes on the turn for Benji. It's the ace of spades.
Great card for Benji.
I say that not knowing exactly what he has, but the ace is definitely going to be heavily favoring his range than mine. So I'm going to check it over to him for a second time, and there's $1,000 in the middle to fight for. I would not expect Benji to check behind on this turn, getting probably the best card in the deck to barrel on. And sure enough, he does fire out for $350. I can't continue any longer. My pocket 10's down in flames, but it's a nit game. Benji has to show his cards, and he turns over king, 10 of clubs. So we got there, and he's taking down that 1.4k pot. We had the best hand. I just couldn't hang on. I know if I would have called that turn, Benji was not slowing down on the river. Right, we upgrade this time from 10s to pocket jacks. I look down at them and decide to come in for a raise to $100, and the action folds around. Seinfeld puts in the call from the cutoff, and John puts in the call from the big blind. We're going to keep both of these hands covered as well. Kind of just gives you guys the feeling of what I was thinking in the moment. We see a pretty good flop, which comes 9-4 deuce with 2 hearts, and John checks it over to me. Really not too much to be scared of. I don't think they're going to have 2s too often. Sure, Seinfeld or John could have pocket 4s, and then all the 2-pair combinations seem kind of ambitious for them to have. So at the most here, they have a pair of 9s, maybe a flush draw, and maybe a set of 4s. Other than that, we have this board pretty much locked up. And one thing that my coach always tells me is when you're in between 2 players, got to start with a check. He calls that monkey in the middle. So I'm not going to deviate from the smarter players giving me advice. I start with a check here in between John and Seinfeld is going to go for a bet into the $330 pot. He nearly pots it. He makes it $300 to go. And just against him, I'm obviously putting in the call. But now John decides to call as well. And John has to recognize that's a very large bet from Seinfeld. So when the action's back over to me, I'm taking note of this. Obviously, I'm not folding for $300 with an overpair, but I'm just letting you guys know that things are going off in my head. Seinfeld bets nearly pot. John calls that pot bet, and I decide to put in the call as well, leading us off 3 ways still to the turn. Turn should not change too much unless someone had ace-3 of spades or ace-3 of hearts. Other than that, really shouldn't change anything. Maybe pocket fives continues one time, but I don't really think Seinfeld's betting pot with pocket fives, and John's probably just going to fold to that bet. So ace-3 of spades and hearts is really the only thing that gets there on the turn. That being said, the action is going to check over to Seinfeld once again. Really no sense in betting into the flop aggressor. 1.2K in the middle, and Seinfeld does not slow down. He's going to bet half pot this time for $600. John decides to let go of his cards, and we can see he had Jack-9 of spades, so obviously we had him beat. But if he has a 9, I'm wondering now what Seinfeld has. Obviously in the moment at this table, I don't know that John has Jack-9 of spades, but he folds his cards, and I don't really think I can fold, still have that overpair. And Seinfeld could easily have some heart flush draws, maybe a hand like ace-9 or king-9 suited. I put in the call, and we're going off to the river, which isn't the best one. It comes the deuce of hearts. It pairs the board, so that might slow the action down a tad. I check it over to Seinfeld, and he snap checks behind, showing 9-7 of diamonds. We're going to win this 2.4K pot. I say I have jacks, and Seinfeld acts pretty surprised as to how I arrived on this river with pocket jacks, but when smart people are giving me advice to check the flop in between 2 opponents, I'm going to oblige. And I think I won a good amount in this one. 2.4K coming over to me. Pocket jacks taking down a nice one. Okay, we're going incognito once again. A lot of fun spots to battle in. Scott's going to open up to $85 from the +2 position, and Seinfeld comes in for a 3-bet to $250. Seinfeld's a good player, so he knows when Scott raises under the gun. He has a pretty narrow range, and Seinfeld 3-betting that is pretty strong. The action folds around to me, and I pick up a premium ace-king of diamonds. 4-bet incoming. Sound the alarm bells. Here it comes. 4-bet sizing to $700 from out of position. If I take it down, I take it down. I wouldn't complain with some free money, but Scott has other ideas. He rips it all in for $5.2 thousand. Definitely a massive overbet. And Seinfeld folds pocket queens. So the 5-bet was way too strong for Seinfeld to continue with pocket queens. I actually really like his fold in the spot. But the action's back over to me, and now I am in a conundrum. It's 3.6K more for me to call. And does Scott ever do this with hands like jacks, queens, kings? I'm blocking aces, and I'm blocking pocket kings. We're flipping against all those other hands. I don't really know if he does it with 10s and jacks. He's probably doing this with queens, kings, aces, ace-king suited, and then maybe ace-queen suited as well. Still, the nit game is in effect. And to make matters a little bit more interesting, Scott does not have a nit button, so can't really put him on too light of a hand. But ace-king suited, it seems like a crime to fold it pre, but sometimes you gotta do it. Am I hinting to you guys that I fold ace-king suited in this one? Maybe. Actually, no. I decide to put in the call. We are going off to the runout in a $9,000 pot, and what does Scott have? None less than the best hand ever created. We are in tough shape. Pocket aces against ace-king suited, 14% chance to win it. And to make matters worse, Scott only runs it one time. Nothing against me. He does that against anyone.
Oh, yeah.
$8,900 pot going once.
Biggest pot of the night.
And we are going off to a runout. We don't even get a diamond on the flops. We're drawing to running kings at this point. The 9 of spades seals our fate on the turn. We are dead in the water. $9,000 getting shipped over to Scott. And after working our 3K starting stack up to a profit of 1.3K, we ship all of it over to Scott and have to rebuy in for another $3,000.
I wasn't too hard on it. Like, he randomized.
Oh, I did.
All right, fun one coming here. We are going to expose the cards. Got to mix it up for you guys. Slick Rick raises ace-king offsuit from the hijack, and the action comes around to me. Slick Rick is in the nit game, and the boy is not, but he puts in the call with 6-5 of spades for $150. Action's on me. I have already gotten rid of my nit button, but I look down at Pocket Kings, the Cowboys here in Dallas, Texas.
Oh, yeah, Wolfgang's looking good.
We got action, folks.
I got to come in for a 3-bet, and I decide to make it $700 to go. I will be out of position the rest of the way against Slick Rick or the boy if they continue. And that's in fact what happens, but Slick Rick comes in for a 4-bet jam to $3.2 thousand. The boy easily gets out of the way with his 6 high. I check my cards to make sure I do in fact have pocket kings, and then I snap call. We're going off to a $6,000 run out, ace king versus pocket kings. But hold up, we are running it twice. Slick Rick was stuck a good amount of money in this one, and he wanted to run it 2 times. I always oblige. I don't really care between once or twice. The only problem is it makes it a little bit harder to win both boards. As you can see, we are a heavy favorite to win this one. The first board comes clean for myself, so no matter what, I am chopping, getting my money back. But this is where the money is made. We need to win the second board to scoop the entire pot. And right out of the gate, it comes ace 10-9 with 2 diamonds. We're going to need to spike a king on one of these remaining cards, which we do not get. We are chopping up that $6,000 pot. Pretty unfortunate. I was a heavy favorite. If I do run it once, I scoop it down. But there has been numerous times where I run it twice and get saved by that second board. So no complaints from me, chopping down a $6,000 pot. All right, this next one's pretty funny. John raises it up to $75 with 7 deuce off. Yes, the game is on for $50 ahead. John is not just sick in the head. He's not just a complete psychopath. He wants to make around $400 from the table. I decided to defend here with pocket 9s from the +3 position. We're going off to a flop, which comes Jack, Jack 4, and John quickly checks it over to me. Sure, he could be doing this with a Jack, but most of the time he's going to have a hand like King Queen, King 10. Of course, 7 deuce is also in his range, so I am going to go for a small bet here for protection against all those overcards and fire out for $75. He's not going to give it up just yet, putting in the call, bringing in the 5 of diamonds on the turn. John checks it over to me for a second time. I go for another bet to the tune of $175, and he can't continue any longer, folds his cards, and I'm taking down a $500 pot. All right, here's the deal. The nit game is back on for this one, and I am heads up in it with our good buddy Jack. He's the guy filming on my direct right, or if you guys are watching this on YouTube, he's on your left. He decides to fold the button, which is kind of surprising, so I'm going to come in for a raise with ace-8 offsuit from the small blind. Geico comes in for a 3-bet to $400, kind of on the smaller size, which allows Benji to think about it here for a second with 9-7 of diamonds, but then ultimately folds his cards. Would have been pretty sick if he comes in for a 4-bet with that hand. When the action's back over to me, Geico could have some pocket pairs, and the nit game is on. I got to put in the call. That's what I decided to do. Heads up, out of position to a flop, $800 in the middle. We flop ourselves middle pair on a Jack 8-4 board, and I start with a check. Actions on Geico, who should go for a C-bet on this board, and that's what he decides to do. $300 to go, and when you make a pair, you got to put in some money. I decided to put in the $300, and we are off to the turn.
Second pair makes the call.
The turn comes the 6 of diamonds, which really shouldn't change too much. Sure, 5-7 now makes a straight, but is Geico really 3-betting with 5-7 out of the big blind? I doubt it, so I check it over to him once again, and his decision on the turn is going to be very telling. If he goes for another bet, he still can represent all of the overpairs in hands like ace-jack, pocket jacks, king-jack, all that good stuff. If he checks behind, though, he's going for some pot control, and he's of course going to have a lot of hands like ace-queen, ace-king, king-10, king-queen, a lot of garbage hands on the turn. So when he checks it behind and we see the river, which comes the 7 of spades, I now think that I have the best hand. What is the best way to make the most amount of money? If I bet here, I'm only going to get called, I think, by better hands. Maybe a hand like king 8 suited could call, but that's pretty much about it. However, if I check it over to Geico, he still can bluff with a lot of those hands, knowing that I probably called light on the flop, given the fact that I'm still in the nit game. So let's put our plan into action. I check it over to Geico, and he looks over at my stack. I only have 2K left in it. I've been in the streets battling, and there's 1.4K in the middle. If he's going to go for a bluff, I like an all-in sizing, really putting me to the test. He does go for a large sizing, and hopefully it's a bluff. He goes for $1.3 thousand, a nearly pot-sized bet, leaving me about $700 behind if I call and I'm wrong. You can see I immediately am frustrated and perplexed. Something seems a little bit off here. My head is in my hands, but I don't want to give it up that easily. I'm definitely thinking about all my options here. Now, when going for a bluff catch on the river, you have to think about what hands you beat. Ace-king, ace-queen, king-queen, king-10, those are all in Geico's range, and are left with just the high card by the river. Hands that I lose to here, what makes some sense? Well, pocket 5s makes a lot of sense. They would c-bet the board on the flop, check behind on the turn, get there on the river, and go for a large sizing. By that same logic, pocket sevens makes a lot of sense. They would also c-bet the flop, check turn, and get there on the river and go for a large bet. Other than that, is he really going to play pocket jacks or ace jack, king jack in this way? I don't really think so. I think those would continue betting on the turn, given the fact there was a lot of draws out there. So I'm excluding pocket jacks, ace jack, king jack. So it's really pocket nines, pocket sevens. Other than that, you guys can let me know down in the comments what you think Geico could show up with on the spot. And I decide to put in the call. Sometimes you have to put your big boy pants on and go down with the ship if you're wrong. But my read was that he had some high cards in the spot. And of course, if he shows up with a straight or a set, so be it. He has way more bluffs than value in the spot.
Yeah, good call, Wolfgang. That a boy.
And much to Jack's dismay on my left, I am correct. Geico turns over ace-king offsuit. The line just did not make much sense to me. And we are taking down a $4,000 pot with second pair on the board on a four-liner to a straight. And this definitely is a hand that I'm super proud of and happy to share with you guys. Let me know down in the comments what you think of this call. Am I letting money on fire in the long run? I don't think so. We are taking down a massive pot. Let's freaking go. And now, ladies and gentlemen, the hand of the night. This one was absolutely insane. I'm not going to spoil which way it went. You're going to want to see the end of this one. And if you want to see more of my videos and are not already subscribed, just scroll down really quickly, hit that subscribe button. Let's get right into the hand of the night. I looked down at the bullets, pocket aces from the hijack, and raised it up to $50. There wasn't a $10 straddle on, so this is definitely a large sizing. We're going to keep Geico's hand covered for the rest of this hand. He is the main culprit in this one, and he 3-bets me to $200. When the action folds back around to me, I am not thinking about just calling. I want to get more money in the middle. You can see my stack is 6.7K at this point, and I topped up for a few $1,000s more after that last hand. I want to get deep with a lot of players on the table and play some massive hands. And a little bit of spoiler alert, this one is going to go the distance. Geico's a fun, splashy player, so although he could have hands like kings, queens, jacks, ace, king, and pocket aces, of course, he's also going to have a lot of the more skeptical hands like 5-6 suited, pocket fives, pocket sixes, maybe even a 7 deuce in there for a change. So of course, I have to come in for a 4-bet. I'll be out of position the rest of the way, and I like a large sizing here of $675 to go. Will this open the door for Geico to come in for a 5-bet? Oh man, I hope he just stuffs it in my face here. But that's not what he decides to do. Instead, he's going to flat call in position, C3 cards, and we are off to a flop. On an 8-6 deuce board, not exactly the best board for pocket aces. Elijah, aka Geico, is going to have pocket eights, pocket sixes, he's going to have 7-9 suited, 5-7 suited, and then some ace-5, ace-king of diamond combinations. That being said, in a 4-bet pot, I don't really like checking. I think going for a $600 bet here is probably the move. And that's what I decided to do, and Geico does not think about it for too long before putting in the call. Occasionally, if he does have pocket eights or sixes, he might want to raise the flop to try to get money in against an overpair, such as pocket aces. But he just puts in the call this time, so a lot of draws, a lot of one-pair combinations that I do still beat. And we are going off to the turn, which comes the jack of hearts. We're now, of course, losing to pocket jacks. It's important not to see monsters in the closet when you see a card that you don't like on the turn. Sure, he could have pocket jacks, but I decided to check here not just because I think he could have that hand, but also because you want to go for some pot control and deception. If I had a hand like ace-king suited, king-queen suited, probably would not be firing on this turn. So when I check with those hands, I also have to check with hands like aces and kings. That's what I decided to do, and Geico's action here on the turn is going to be pretty telling. If he checks behind on the turn, that means he probably has a little bit of showdown value and doesn't see the need of bluffing. He also could be doing this with a hand like ace-jack suited or king-jack suited. So when he checks behind and we see the 3 of spades on the river, I want to go for a large sizing and target all of the hands that have some showdown value that might think I'm bluffing with ace-king or king-queen. If I did have ace-king or king-queen, I'd want to go for an overbet to try to put maximum pressure on a one-pair type hand like queen-jack, pocket tens, pocket nines, ace-8 suited, all of that good stuff. And I go for an overbet of $3.3 thousand. Now when Geico doesn't snap fold, it's kind of a double-edged sword. It means he's thinking about putting in the call, or he's thinking about raising, and if he raises, it's pretty much a set or nothing. So at this point, I love that he hasn't folded because there's a chance I can make some more money, But at the same time, I'm thinking in my head, please don't raise. Just put in the call here, and we're going to take down basically a $9,000 pot. However, that's not what happens. Geico decides to shove all in, and it's only another 2.2K for me to call into the ready $12,000 pot.
Oh, no.
Did he call? Oh, he ripped it.
Oh, wow.
And it's only around another 2.2K for me to call into around an effective $10,000 pot. I know it says 12K on the screen, but his all in for 6K isn't really most accurate because I only have 2.2K in my stack. So 2.2K to win a pot of around $12,500 if I put in the call, that's an insane price. And by that logic, I should just put the money in.
2,200 to win 12,000. You got to be right 1 in every 100 times. Yeah, I don't know about.
This is an incredible price. It's getting like 5.5 to 1.
However, is there ever a circumstance where we can fold pocket aces on this board? What is Geico representing when he shoves the river? Did he get there with a hand like 4-5? Did he get there with a hand like pocket jacks and checks behind on the turn? I really think it's pocket jacks or 4-5. However, Geico would have had to have called a 4-bet in position with 4-5 suited for him to get there on the river. So I think pocket jacks is definitely the most likely hand. And when there's really only one hand that beats you, you have to put in the call. And even though this is a severely underbluff spot, I decided to put in the 2.2K, essentially just handing that over to Geico like 99% of the time. Why would he ever be bluffing in this spot?
$13.5 thousand pot going to Wolfgang.
Geico, I love you, man, but I love your chips even more. I put in the call. He says I'm good, and I'm not going to wait to turn over my cards. I'll see what he had after the stream. I put in the call. We're going to win a $13,000 pot, and let's see what Geico finally had in this hand. 7-deuce offsuit, makes a pair on the flop, and goes absolutely berserk on the river. You got to hand it to him. What an insane bluff, finding a severely underbluff spot, and at least making me think about the decision. I told him afterwards, props to him for making that bluff. The only reason I called was because of pot odds, but at that same time, if I had $2,000 or $3,000 more in my stack, I probably find the fold there because he's really just representing 4-5 suited and pocket jacks. Still, this was the craziest hand I've played in the last few months. Absolutely nuts, pocket aces versus 7-deuce, and somehow, some way, we are playing a $13,000 pot, and I get my entire stack in, and we hold with one pair. Let's freaking go. Let me know down in the comments what you thought about this hand, and be nice to Geico. He's a great guy, and I'm going to be playing with him a bunch, probably inviting him down to a few other streams in the Dallas area. So yeah, comment what your thoughts were about this hand, and let's move right into the last hand of the night. I don't know how it could get any better than that one. We have $13,000 in my stack. After getting stacked pretty early on from Scott, we have battled all the way back up, and look down at pocket aces once again.
Wow,
You have a whole
Wolfgang with
Vegas bump.
aces again.
Hello.
Hello.
The poker gods are smiling down on us, and I raise it up to $100 from the +2 position over a $25 straddle. John puts in the call from the straddle, and we are going heads up in position to a flop, which comes 9-8-6. John checks, and I decide to check behind. Off to the turn we go, which comes the deuce of hearts. Really shouldn't change too much. John fires out. I have the best pair possible and put in the call. Off to the river we go. It comes the queen of diamonds. Much better for my range than John's. He checks it over to me. I go for a small bet of $75, and he puts in the call with 7-6 offsuit, making a pair of sixes, not believing I hit a queen on the river. And he was right, but I had it the whole way. Pocket aces taking down the last two hands of the night. And with that last hand in the books, we rack up our massive chip stack here in this 5-10-25 game and head over to the cage, booking a solid profit on this fine Friday night. All right, that wraps up the session. What do we have to report? Well, a lot of things. We got in for 3,000, worked it up to 4,700, and then got stacked. Ace King of Diamonds versus Scott's Aces. That was a bummer. I got back into my bag and bought in for 3K. At 10 p.m., I topped up an additional 2K, I believe. So I was in for $8,000, and then that monstrosity of a hand happened against Elijah, where we won a $14,000 pot. So the net result is we booked a $72.55 profit in 6 hours. The biggest win of my life by far here at Peaks Dallas. Super fun stream, Benji's game. Shout out to everyone for putting this event on. And a $7,200 profit here in 6 hours. Definitely what I needed. A few big losses have happened on the TCH live stream, and then here I'm stuck like 9K in the game. So last time I played in this, I lost like 5K. It didn't feel pretty great. So to get $7,200 back is definitely a good feeling. But as for now, we're gonna sign off. Tomorrow I'm coming back. They're having a creators night. I'm gonna play some 1-2, and I think I'm gonna film a low stakes vlog. So if you guys are interested in that, be sure to hit the subscribe button. If you guys are new here, drop a subscribe. A lot of cool content coming up. I think the end of the year, we are going to the Bahamas and playing in that WSOP event. So more info on that later. Also have that meetup game in Arizona. And yeah, the info I'll put on the screen right here. If you guys are in the Phoenix area, come out to that. I have a few links down below to some training courses in online poker. Go click that if you're interested. I'm gonna sign off here. Thanks for all the support. My biggest win in the books here at Peaks Dallas, $7,200. Don't catch me in the parking lot. I'm leaving it all here. I'll catch you in the next video as always. Peace.
Is that Wolfgang Poker?